Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni, the 93rd verse from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel TN Thai in the USA. He whose corruptions are destroyed, he who is not attached to food, he who has deliverance, which is void and signless, as his object, his path, like that of birds in the air, cannot be traced. This verse calls our attention to the profound inner transformation that arises when one destroys the corruptions of the mind, those subtle defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion that cloud perception and bind consciousness to suffering. The Buddha's teaching emphasizes that liberation is not attained through mere external observances or ritual, but through the direct purifying of the mind, the diligent practice of self-restraint, and the cultivation of insight. When the mind is freed from corruption, it is like a clear sky, unclouded by the storms of desire and aversion. The practitioner who follows this path is not attached even to the most basic sustenance, including food, recognizing that craving itself, however subtle, can bind the mind. Reflection over food, as illustrated in the lives of wandering monks and nuns, is a practice of awareness, a training to notice attachment, and a cultivation of moderation. It is not a rejection of nourishment, but a mindful engagement with what sustains the body while keeping the mind unbound. The deliverance that is void and signless, which the Buddha points to in this verse, is the ultimate goal of the path. It transcends form, thought, and conceptual grasping. It is the experience of nibbana, where there is no clinging, no suffering, no accumulation. The liberated practitioner moves naturally in life, neither bound by craving nor tethered by aversion. Like birds in the air whose flight cannot be traced, the course of one who has attained this state is subtle, effortless, and spontaneous. The imagery of birds emphasizes both freedom and clarity. Just as the bird is guided by the innate rhythm of the skies, moving gracefully with each beat of its wings, the liberated practitioner flows through life with awareness, compassion, and insight, responding to circumstances appropriately without the distortions of clinging or fear. In the stories recorded in the Dhammapada commentaries, we find examples of disciples who embody this teaching. A monk who had practiced diligently for many years was observed by his peers to move with a rare serenity, even in challenging conditions. When food was scarce or when harsh weather struck, he did not cling or complain. He reflected on the impermanence of food, the impermanence of the body, and the impermanence of all phenomena. His practice was consistent, mindful observation, gentle restraint, and deliberate cultivation of clarity. Through this sustained effort, he eradicated subtle defilements in the mind, and his path became as free and untraceable as the birds that soar across the sky. Each action in his daily life was an extension of insight and awareness. When walking, he observed each step, noting the sensations of the feet, the contact with the ground, and the movement of the body in space. When interacting with others, he spoke with kindness, understanding, and attention, without desire for recognition or personal gain. When meditating, he observed the arising of thoughts and emotions, neither clinging to them nor resisting them, allowing the mind to settle into clarity and stillness. This verse teaches us that freedom is cultivated in the ordinary as much as in formal meditation. Every moment offers an opportunity to observe the mind, notice subtle attachments, and release clinging. The path of liberation is subtle, requiring continuous diligence and reflection. Those who destroy corruptions of the mind cultivate equanimity, wisdom, and compassion, and their actions are naturally aligned with the Dharma. The Buddha's words remind us that attachment to sustenance, whether in thought or desire, is one of the many subtle chains that bind us. By reflecting upon the impermanence and appropriateness of what sustains the body, we cultivate the capacity to move beyond craving, and into a state of inner freedom. The imagery of the untraceable birds further reminds us that liberation is not a rigid or predictable course. The mind of one who is free is fluid, responsive, and unobstructed. It does not cling to places, possessions, or even to the sense of self. It moves naturally through life, guided by wisdom, awareness, and compassion. This verse encourages us to consider our own attachments, whether material, emotional, or conceptual. We may carry subtle desires and cravings without noticing their influence. By cultivating mindful reflection, observing our actions, and practicing restraint, we gradually loosen the bonds of attachment and open the heart to clarity and freedom. The path of the practitioner is not a simple journey. It is a continuous process of purification, observation, and insight. Each step in daily life, from walking to eating to interacting with others, becomes an opportunity to practice mindfulness, to observe and release subtle attachments, and to cultivate the qualities of a liberated mind. The verse thus offers both guidance and inspiration. It demonstrates that liberation is attainable through diligence, awareness, and compassion. The practitioner may move quietly, without accumulation, without attachment, and yet each action contributes to the unfolding of wisdom and freedom. Like the birds in the sky, whose course is subtle and untraceable, the liberated mind moves naturally, guided by insight and compassion, radiating serenity and clarity without effort or intention. In this way, the 93rd verse illuminates the subtle and profound nature of deliverance, urging us to cultivate non-attachment, mindful reflection, and the eradication of mental corruptions, so that our course in life may be as free, luminous, and untraceable as the flight of birds. The life of one who has destroyed corruptions and is unattached to food demonstrates the profound subtlety of inner freedom. Such a practitioner is not defined by externals, by possessions, or by status, but by the clarity and purity of their mind. In the Buddha's teachings, this quality of mind is described as both rare and precious, for it arises only from continuous diligence, mindfulness, and reflection. The practitioner observes every action, every thought, and every intention with care, noting how subtle desires and habitual tendencies can arise even in ordinary circumstances. The reflection on food, highlighted in the verse, serves as a metaphor and as a literal practice. While nourishing the body, the mind is simultaneously trained to recognize craving, to release subtle clinging, and to cultivate awareness. The practitioner understands that attachment is not limited to material accumulation but extends to the subtle accumulation of habit, preference, and identification. In the stories from the Buddha's time, wandering monks exemplify this principle by carrying only what is necessary, accepting alms without greed, and reflecting on the impermanent and appropriate nature of the food offered. They do not indulge, nor do they resist, but they take what sustains life in moderation and with awareness. In doing so, they cultivate a mind free from clinging, which is a foundation for the realization of deliverance, the void and signless. This deliverance is not something to be grasped or possessed. It is the natural freedom of the mind, free from defilement, craving, and conceptual constraint. The practitioner's path is subtle and often imperceptible to others, much like the flight of birds in the air, whose course cannot be traced. This imagery conveys the fluidity, spontaneity, and unbound nature of liberation. The mind of the awakened is unconfined, moving naturally in response to conditions with clarity and equanimity. The Dhammapada stories often describe such practitioners navigating both mundane and challenging circumstances with serene presence. Whether facing scarcity, criticism, or discomfort, they remain steady, observing the arising of thoughts and emotions, neither clinging to pleasure nor resisting discomfort. Their awareness is continuous, subtle, and radiant, allowing them to act in alignment with wisdom and compassion at all times. The verse teaches that the eradication of corruption is not a one-time achievement, but a continuous process. The mind may still be influenced by subtle tendencies of desire, aversion, or ignorance, and it is through ongoing mindfulness and reflection that these tendencies are observed, understood, and gradually released. The practitioner learns to see the impermanence and unsatisfactoriness of all phenomena, cultivating equanimity and discernment. By practicing non-attachment to food, one develops a subtle freedom that extends to all aspects of life. Possessions, relationships, reputation, and even views can be approached with clarity, without grasping or clinging. This liberation is reflected in conduct, speech, and thought, manifesting as serenity, lightness, and ease in daily life. In the stories, disciples who have reached this state are described as moving through villages and monasteries with a quiet dignity. They accept what is necessary, leave what is not needed, and act with a compassion that is unconditioned by expectation or preference. Their course is untraceable in the sense that it is not bound by habitual patterns, societal expectations, or attachment to outcomes. Like birds in flight, their movements are natural, effortless, and guided by wisdom. The verse also reminds us that the pursuit of deliverance, void and signless, is not an abstract concept, but a lived experience. It is cultivated through attentive practice, continuous reflection, and the eradication of subtle attachments and defilements. The practitioner's life becomes a continuous exercise in letting go of craving, letting go of aversion, letting go of identification with self or circumstance. Each breath, each step, each action becomes a practice in mindfulness. Each moment an opportunity to release attachment and cultivate clarity. Through this ongoing effort, the mind becomes light, radiant, and free. The stories illustrate that such liberation is attainable, yet it requires consistent effort, discipline, and patience. There is no shortcut, no sudden escape from defilement. The practice is subtle, continuous, and intimate, demanding the careful observation of thoughts, emotions, and actions. Over time, the practitioner develops a natural freedom that is both gentle and powerful. The imagery of birds in the sky serves as a reminder that liberation is dynamic, fluid, and unbounded. Just as birds navigate winds and weather with ease, without leaving traces or being constrained by fixed paths, the liberated mind responds to conditions with clarity, discernment, and equanimity. The path of the practitioner is therefore not rigid, but flexible, not forced, but natural, not traceable, but visible in the quiet radiance of the mind. The verse encourages us to bring this teaching into our own lives, reflecting on subtle attachments, practicing mindful consumption, and cultivating a mind that is free, luminous, and unbound. Each action, each thought, each breath is an opportunity to observe, release, and cultivate awareness. In this way, the practitioner gradually eradicates corruptions, moves beyond attachment to sustenance, and directs effort toward the void and signless deliverance. Over time, the mind becomes spacious, serene, and radiant, manifesting freedom, clarity, and compassion in all aspects of life. This teaching reminds us that the path to liberation is both subtle and profound, accessible in the ordinary circumstances of daily life, and exemplified in the lives of those who have practiced diligently, reflected deeply, and cultivated freedom with awareness and patience. The path of one who has destroyed corruptions and is free from attachment to food is marked by a remarkable subtlety of awareness, a continuous presence that permeates every action, every thought, and every moment. Such a practitioner is not swayed by praise or blame, gain or loss, comfort or discomfort. Their mind is steady, balanced, and luminous, like a lake untouched by wind, reflecting the truth of impermanence and the nature of phenomena. In the stories associated with this verse, wandering monks and nuns exemplify this practice in their daily lives. They rise early, move mindfully, and engage with the world with a gentle attentiveness. They eat only what is necessary, reflecting on the nourishment it provides. While observing any arising attachment, they walk without hurry, speak with clarity and compassion, and meditate with sustained awareness. Even in moments of difficulty, such as encountering scarcity, illness, or adversity, they maintain calmness and equanimity, observing the transient nature of conditions and the arising of subtle tendencies within the mind. This continuous practice of observation and reflection gradually eradicates defilements, both gross and subtle, allowing the mind to rest naturally in clarity and freedom. The verse emphasizes that the path of such a practitioner is like the flight of birds in the air, whose course cannot be traced. This metaphor conveys the effortless spontaneity and freedom of the liberated mind. The movements of such a person are not constrained by attachment, habit, or fear. Each choice and each action arise naturally, guided by awareness, insight, and compassion. The mind is free, luminous, and unbound, moving through life without leaving traces of grasping or clinging. In observing this way of life, we are reminded that liberation is not a distant ideal, but a lived reality accessible in every moment through mindfulness, reflection, and careful attention. The eradication of corruptions does not occur all at once, but gradually, through consistent practice and gentle observation. Each moment becomes an opportunity to notice subtle attachments, to release clinging, and to cultivate wisdom and compassion. Through this practice, the mind becomes spacious, radiant, and free, manifesting serenity and clarity in every interaction and circumstance. The Buddha's teaching in this verse also encourages us to reflect on the nature of sustenance and desire. Even ordinary needs, such as food, sleep, or comfort, can become sources of attachment if approached without awareness. By reflecting on impermanence, appropriateness, and moderation, the practitioner learns to engage with these needs mindfully, avoiding craving and clinging. In doing so, they cultivate subtle freedom that extends to all aspects of life. The stories of practitioners in the Buddha's time illustrate how this principle works in daily life. Monks traveling from village to village, accepting alms with mindfulness, moving without attachment, and observing the arising of thoughts and emotions provide a living example of this teaching. Their conduct demonstrates that liberation is not dependent on circumstances or possessions, but on the cultivation of a mind that is free, vigilant, and aware. The verse calls us to emulate this practice, recognizing that every moment provides an opportunity to release subtle attachments and cultivate inner freedom. Like the birds in the air, whose course is subtle and untraceable, the liberated mind moves naturally, gracefully, and with effortless clarity. Each action is infused with awareness, each choice guided by discernment, and each interaction an opportunity to embody compassion. Over time, this consistent practice leads to profound inner transformation, where the mind is free from corruption, attachment, and subtle clinging. The path becomes radiant, fluid, and unbound, allowing the practitioner to navigate the challenges of life with wisdom, serenity, and compassion. In this way, the 93rd verse illuminates the path of mindful exertion, non-attachment, and dedication to the void and signless deliverance. It teaches us that freedom is cultivated through reflection, awareness, and the eradication of subtle defilements, and that the course of the liberated mind, like the flight of birds, is untraceable yet perfectly harmonious with the Dharma. As we conclude our reflection on the 93rd verse of the Dhammapada, let us carry the teachings into our daily life. The eradication of corruptions, the mindful reflection over sustenance, and the pursuit of deliverance, void and signless, guide us toward freedom, clarity, and serenity. Like the birds in the air, our path may be subtle and untraceable, yet each step taken with awareness brings the mind closer to liberation, wisdom, and compassionate action. May this teaching inspire us to observe our thoughts and actions, release attachment, and cultivate the radiant freedom of the awakened mind. Thank you for watching my video. Namalamat Ba. I wish to bring this merit towards all disciples and sentient beings, all of whom will attain Buddhahood. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate your time.